Like 14, it's 13. That's the wind chill along Chicago's lakefront. Winds out of the northwest at 12 miles per hour. But we do have beautiful sunny skies today, getting up to 27. It is noon. Time for news on WBEZ.
You're listening to Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. Coming up on the show, the Chicago Bears are one step closer toward moving to northwest suburban Arlington Heights. CTA and Pace announced a joint unlimited ride pass for commuters. And we're just over 10 days out from Chicago's mayoral election. Those stories and much more in our 1-hour weekly news recap. Remember that you can head over to the WBEZ YouTube and Facebook pages to watch us break down those top stories. It's all happening right after the latest news from around the country and the world.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The 5 ex-Memphis police officers charged in the beating death of Tyree Nichols are all pleading not guilty. Addressing the courtroom during today's arraignment, Judge James Jones Jr. urged everyone to remain civil during the proceedings, noting that each defendant has an absolute right to a fair trial.
We understand that there may be some high emotions in this case, but we ask that you continue to be patient with us. Everyone involved wants this case to be concluded as quickly as possible.
Nichols' death sparked protests in Memphis and other major cities after the Memphis Police Department released videos of last month's violent arrests. Body cam and surveillance video showed officers beating and kicking the 29-year-old man following a traffic stop. Nichols died days later. All the officers charged with the black motorist murder are black. Michigan State University plans to resume classes Monday. That's nearly a week after a gunman shot and killed 3 students and wounded 5 others. From member station WKAR, Michelle Jokish-Polo reports university officials are still evaluating other campus decisions.
MSU interim president Teresa Woodruff said the university doesn't immediately plan to reopen one of the buildings where 2 of the students died.
The 2 buildings, Berkey, remains closed for the remainder of the semester. The second building, the Union, is still being evaluated for decisions to be reported later.
Woodruff also said the university is considering whether to offer to move classes online for the remainder of the year. Currently, there's a student-led petition with more than 10,000 signatures urging the university to move classes online. For NPR News, I'm Michelle Jokish-Polo.
Speaking via video link to a global security conference in Germany, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country won't be the last stop of Russia's invasion and that the Kremlin could attack other former Soviet states. NPR's Veronica Kisses has more from Kyiv.
A pianist played Schubert as Zelensky appeared on a giant screen via video link. He told the attendees, who include Vice President Kamala Harris and the leaders of France and Germany, that Ukraine is fighting a David versus Goliath battle against Russia to save Western democratic ideals.
There is no alternative but to defeat Goliath, who came to destroy our life. Unfortunately, he can still destroy many lives, many. That is why we need to hurry up.
He said Russia is strangling former Soviet republics like Moldova as the West discusses tank supplies to Ukraine. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 71 points. You're listening to NPR News.
23 degrees and sunny skies. The wind chill is 14. It's 12:04. I'm Lisa Labis with WBEZ News. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is pledging to do everything in her power to remove unhoused people at O'Hare Airport, citing safety concerns. The Sun-Times reporting Lightfoot says while the city will do what's necessary to provide support for people who are experiencing homelessness, it was fundamentally unacceptable to have people sleeping in our airports. The number of unhoused people taking refuge at O'Hare has increased this year, and that's been drawing national attention. Members of the Illinois legislature's Black Caucus say they're glad Governor Pritzker's proposed budget is addressing issues important to them. Democratic State Senator L.G. Sims, pointing to the governor's plans announced this week to invest more money in places like early childhood, K through 12, and higher education, also economic development. He says they will advocate for policies that move their communities forward.
What you are hearing from the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus is a commitment to our communities, a commitment to ensuring that our communities have equity. Now, equity means that we have the same as everyone else, but also that we repair some of the damage that has been done in the past.
The governor and lawmakers will spend the next 3 months or so hashing out a final budget document. The Chicago chapter of the National Audubon Society is urging the organization to change its name. The National Audubon Society says artist and naturalist John James Audubon was a slaveholder and a thief of human remains. The national organization has been reconsidering the name, but the Chicago Society will change its name regardless, according to President Judy Pollack. It's 12:05. This is WBEZ.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fidelity Investments. A dedicated advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. More at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. What a week. You ever feel like there's just too much news happening around you, but so little time? It can be a struggle to keep up with it all and knowing what is going on in your own backyard. Believe us, we know. That is why every Friday at noon, we get caught up on the week's stories, big and small, with our weekly news recap. Stories like these.
Chicago Bears have finalized the deal to buy the old Arlington Park racetrack property.
In an open letter, the Bears said finalizing the purchase of the property does not mean for sure that a new Bears stadium will be built there, but it is an important next step.
The election for mayor is less than 2 weeks away.
And if you ever thought your vote didn't matter, think again. A new poll shows a very tight race at this point.
Our panel this week to help break down the top stories are Brandon Pope, reporter and anchor from CW26. Hey, Brandon.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. Good to see you. Derrick Blakley is here, former CBS 2 Chicago politics reporter. Hi, Derrick. Welcome to Reset.
Sasha, great to be here.
And rounding out our panel is Corli Jay, reporter with Crain Chicago Business. Welcome to the show, Corli.
Thanks for having me, Sasha.
Don't forget that you can also watch the weekly news recap right now on the WBEZ Facebook and WBEZ YouTube pages. And you can also watch the live stream on Reset's Facebook page. All right. I want to start with one of the big stories that broke this week. It's on everyone's minds. Of course, I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. They announced that they have closed on the purchase of Arlington Park, which is a huge step toward the team moving outside of Chicago. I know that you've been following this story, Brandon. Your thoughts?
I mean, the whole reason they brought in Kevin Warren, is they're going to leave. I mean, it's pretty much a done deal. They released a statement saying this does not mean it's a done deal, of course. And there's still lots of different processes that have to go through. But look, this is a pretty big sign that they got this. So some context here. The Bears right now are projected as the 5th most lucrative franchise in football. And that's according to Forbes. It's also projected if they move to Arlington Heights, they become the number 1 most lucrative franchise by building a new stadium. The idea is that it brings in more revenue, brings in more interest. And the big conversation, of course, is a dome. Soldier Field, the snowy conditions, players get frustrated. Justin Fields just making comments on a podcast about how he would like a dome.
He said, quote, I don't care if we're at Soldier Field. I don't care if we're at Arlington Heights. I hope we get a dome.
Now, here's the tough part for Mayor Lori Lightfoot, okay? She doesn't want to go down as the mayor that lost the Bears. And she's kind of throwing in her Hail Marys right now. She's offered to put a dome over Soldier Field. The cost of that, though, let me get this exact number for you. It's a doozy. We're talking billions of dollars here. $2 billion, okay? $2.2 billion for a dome over Soldier Field. Some of that, she says, would be through a licensing naming rights deal, but she hasn't given an exact plan to fund the rest of it.
Right.
She had a press conference yesterday. Reacting to this, she's not losing hope. She says that now the situation, basically, she was not allowed to negotiate directly with the Bears during this process because they were in exclusive negotiations with the Arlington Heights racecourse area. Now that deal has been kind of struck, she can now talk with the Bears freely, and she thinks that actually benefits her, and she's hoping she can make a late Hail Mary pass and get them to say, hey, Soldier Field, we're going to make some renovations, we're going to make it more attractive and keep them there.
The negotiation better be a poker game, though, because she's got no cards to play.
That's the tough part, right?
I mean, we're still paying off the $700 million in bonds that it costs to redo Soldier Field.
Yeah.
Where is the money going to come from? And no deal that she can cut can give the Bears what they're going to get in Arlington Heights, which is total control over everything, the building, parking, concessions. You're talking about a dome. We could have a Final Four located in Chicago. There could be mega concerts in the winter there.
Yes,
so there's many more money-making money-making possibilities for the McCaskies in Arlington Heights and exist in Soldier Field, and nothing Lori Lightfoot does can really compare to that.
They already made up their mind. Let's face it, they've been wanting to leave for a while now. It's not the first time that they proposed.
Corli, I mean, the question that keeps coming up is what is Chicago without the Bears, right? But should the question be what is the team without Chicago?
I think that's a better question. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're still going to be Chicago Bears, right? It's a lot of teams, NFL teams that don't play in the city necessarily.
That's the thing. I've been rooting for them to move because you look at there's a lot of NFL teams. New York Giants, New York Jets are not in New York. They're in New Jersey.
Right.
The Washington football team, they are not in Washington. They're in Maryland.
Right.
Like, there's numerous teams that they're not in the city that their name claims to be. So it's not out of the ordinary at all. And Soldier Field is still going to be there. I imagine Notre Dame and other college programs, Northwestern, are going to still use it.
You still got concerts.
You'll still have the On the Run tours and the Renaissance tour and everything. Beyonce's going to do her thing in the summer. They're still going to use it and make improvements.
Well, I will say I'm not rooting for them to leave, but if they do, it won't be such a loss.
You got to consider this too. There's a possibility that if the Bears leave and go to Arlington, Chicago, number 3 market in the country, could still make a play for a possible second NFL team.
I don't think that's going to happen.
It's a long shot.
It's a pipe dream.
It's a long shot.
Yeah, it's a long shot. First of all, I think they have right of first refusal.
They do. Absolutely.
They own the market, so to speak, under the NFL rules. But another reason to go to Arlington Heights is the fan experience at Soldier Field is miserable.
Yeah, man.
Unless you're in a box, it's very nice if you're in the skybox. It's very convenient. But if you have to sit outside in those nosebleed, seats and the conditions, the long lines,
driving there, parking there,
getting there, getting out of there,
right? So like, which of you is actually going to drive out to Arlington Heights for a game?
I may do that one time during preseason.
Take the Metro.
During preseason?
During preseason, that's my time. I don't really go. That's too expensive.
The proposal calls for a new train station that's going to be outside of the Arlington racetrack area. That's going to be a direct, Chicago to Arlington Heights. So,
really?
Yeah. So
nice.
That issue would probably be resolved there.
But you still got Metro right there too in Soldier Field.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, here's a question from Chicago 675 on YouTube. They say, can a dome actually work at Soldier Field the way it's set up?
If you spend enough money,
but that's why it's $2.2 billion.
Fix it up.
Putting lipstick on a pig is still a pig.
Yeah.
There's still, the site location problems, the difficulty in getting there, getting out of there. And again, there's the revenue side, which the city simply can't match.
Right. So if they don't end up moving, say they strike a deal with Mayor Lightfoot and they get the dome over Soldier Field, and they stay in Chicago, does that mean that they're stuck with this $197 million property in Arlington Heights, Brandon?
There are ways they can, basically they have first ownership rights of it. There are things they can do with that site outside of having a stadium. Their big proposal has been an overall entertainment district in that area, a Bears land in a sense.
Yeah.
They could still do that. Would it make sense to do that without a stadium there? Probably not. So you'd think that the Bears would probably look to then sell it back or sell it to somebody else at that
point. What I want to know is, did they pay cash or do they have a mortgage? And if they have a mortgage, what's the nut?
That's a great question. That's a good question.
What's the earliest that they can leave? They can 2033 is when the lease is over, right?
Ooh, I think it's probably sooner than that. So they can leave sooner than that, but
it's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while to build the stadium, to make all the approvals and all that type of stuff. I think we're still years away.
Everything we're talking about is years out.
Yeah, so my kids will still enjoy the Bears at Soldier Field.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Justin Fields got to play in the snow for a little longer.
Right. This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. We are breaking down the biggest stories of the week with a panel of wonderful Chicago journalists. We've got Corli Jay with Crain Chicago Business, Derrick Blakley, former politics reporter with CBS 2 Chicago, and Brandon Pope with CW26. Don't forget that you can watch us break down the news right now on WBEZ's Facebook and YouTube pages. You can also leave us comments or questions in the chat box, and I may just read what you have to say on the air. All right, let's turn to the mayor's race. We're 11 days away from Election Day. Wow. There's a new poll from Northwestern Center for the Study of Diversity and Democracy, which is showing a very tight race right now. Paul Vallis is in the lead with 19%. He's followed by Chuy Garcia at 17%. Incumbent Lori Lightfoot's at 14%, and businessman Willie Wilson's at 12%. Any of these numbers surprising to you, Brandon?
No, not at this point. Early on when the polls were coming out, we got different variations all saying different things. And so you really couldn't look into them too hard. You still got to look at all polls with a grain of salt. But now every poll we're seeing is starting to say something similar or some variation of the same thing. Paul Vallis is the front runner. Chuy Garcia, Lightfoot, Brandon Johnson, somewhere within striking distance. This one got Willie Wilson in that. Willie Wilson and Johnson have kind of been going back and forth in that 4 spot. Sometimes Johnson's at 3. It just depends on which one you're looking at. But Vallis, that's been the big talker because this is a man many deemed unelectable in Chicago, given his, GOP ties and FOP endorsements and stuff like that. Not as progressive or big blue as the others. But crime has been the big note in this race.
Yes.
And he's been hitting that note aggressively hard.
I was not surprised at all when we hosted our forums last week that the day when we had Vallis on, he was literally the subject of every attack. I'm like, okay.
That's front runner status for you.
Exactly. Corli, how much stock do you put into polls anyway? Because as Brendan said, there are other polls that are showing Brandon Johnson, for instance, in the top 4.
Not too much. I don't think so. And it was really surprising to me to hear that Willie was really, really high. I expected that to go to Brandon. So I don't know how much to put on these polls. And didn't Harold Washington kind of poll low?
Yeah, and around this time as well, Lori Lightfoot was polling low around this time as well.
How much can we really put on it?
Right.
Yeah, things can change. A lot can change. But I think you got to look at trends as well. Early voting right now, especially with mail-in. Mail-in's got voter turnout looking really good so far, but you look at where a lot of these votes are coming in, it's leaning like it'd be Vallis territory. Mount Greenwood Park, 19th Ward,
not surprising.
41st Ward, McGuan Park, 11th Ward, that all seems to benefit Vallis at this point. So you got to look at those south and west side wards. What are they going to do? What turnout's going to be like over there?
Yeah.
That's going to be the story. But so far, I think Vallis is looking pretty good.
So earlier this week in a forum with NBC5 and WVON, we saw 3 candidates focus their attacks on Brandon Johnson. Lori Lightfoot, State Rep Cam Buckner, and organizer Jamal Green. They've all gone on the offensive when it comes to Johnson. So let's talk about that, Derrick. Because Lightfoot called Johnson a, quote, false prophet. Jamal Green called him a fraud. What are your thoughts?
Well, essentially, that's Lori Lightfoot trying to protect what she sees as her voter base, which is black voters. And she has a lot of competition for that vote. Willie Wilson, Cam Buckner, Sophia King, Roderick Sawyer, Jamal Green, and Brandon Johnson are all other black candidates. But Brandon Johnson is seen as being the leader, other than Willie Wilson, in that group. And he's very well financed from the Chicago Teachers Union. So she is trying to beat back any defection of black voters, defection as she would see it, to him.
You're our veteran politics guy here. Is that a winning strategy, you think?
Yes. We'll have to see whether it wins for her. But, dragging your major opponents down or trying to increase their negatives in the eyes of voters is very much a tried and true tactic. But I think, like Brandon said, I think Paul Vallis is the leader in the race. And the reason I think he is because there is no competition for his slice of the electorate. Northwest side, southwest side, ethnic wards, some downtown vote. He is the only white candidate in the race, and we don't want to talk about race, but this is Chicago.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's the only white candidate. And if you look at the 2019 results, there were 6 white candidates, led, of course, by Bill Daley, who just barely missed making the runoff. He just got 350 votes less than Preckwinkle, or else he would have been in the runoff. But those 6 white candidates got 31% of the vote.
And are you surprised by Vallis being a front runner, especially considering what Brandon brought up earlier? It wasn't long ago that folks considered him unelectable.
Well, no, because this is every year the electorate changes. Every year there are different circumstances. His positives are he is seen as someone who can manage the city. He knows the budget inside out. He was a former budget director. He's run the public schools. The public schools are failing Chicago children. When you look at the results in the schools, and
many of them have blamed.
And so that is what he sees as that is what are viewed as positives for him. And then we've got also, let's not forget, Congressman Garcia is also a front runner. He has strong support from the progressive movement, but he is also challenged because Commissioner Brandon Johnson is running as a progressive candidate as well. So Paul Vallas is the only candidate who has his section of the electorate carved out, and I think that makes it likely that he is going to be at least one of the survivors of the runoff. We have to say likely because there's still a large undecided vote as well.
What is that like?
Yeah,
but
it's large
20%,
25%,
18%, various polls.
Yeah.
But undecideds generally do not break for an incumbent, and that's the bad news for Lori Lightfoot.
Derrick,
I will say this, however.
Yeah.
I think Lori Lightfoot has a chance to benefit from kind of a late-minute surge of black voters. Black voters tend to be conservative. They tend to favor the incumbents, as we've seen in our long-standing congressmen, who've been in office forever, and sometimes older black voters say, well, better the devil you know. They may not be crazy about Lori Lightfoot. They might be crazy about the crime.
I've heard that so many times.
And of course, black
weeks.
people have been the victims of the crime surge more than others. So that there is a possibility, but she is, I think, running an uphill race.
Hermine Hartman of Indigo made a similar point, endorsing Lightfoot and saying, basically arguing that black candidates need to drop out and rally around one candidate. She was arguing for Lightfoot. Derrick, I'm interested in your opinion on this. Does Lightfoot benefit more from a Vallas runoff matchup or a Garcia runoff matchup?
Well, she said Vallas is the candidate she wants.
Yeah.
She's pinpointing.
But do you think she's right to that? You think she's right for that? Because
I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I think she is viewing it partially, frankly, from a racial perspective, because she thinks she can rally the black vote and the Hispanic vote to her. And, when you have one candidate to focus on, she can focus on amplifying what she sees as Vallas's negatives.
Right. It'd be really easy for her to do that.
So Corli, the race, it really might be a nail biter just based on some of the things I'm hearing today. Early voting turnout is high right now. There are tons of mail-in ballots coming in. I know the Chicago Board of Elections said earlier this week that they've seen nearly 64,000 ballots so far. Compare that to the 2019 municipal election, when at this point voters really had only cast just over 12,000 ballots.
Wow.
What do you think it is that's pushing voters to turn out right now? What could it be?
Well, a lot of people have been complaining about Lightfoot. She isn't the person that they thought that she was when she ran, running as a progressive, but that wasn't really her ideology. And you have all of these candidates, a lot of them kind of have the same ideologies, but a lot of them slightly different, like Vallas. And I think that people just want to change. The crime is a big thing. Education is a big thing. And you have people that like J. Maul, we've seen a lot of time, Willie Wilson, but you have Johnson, you have Buckner, these people that's really coming out.
Is that it? Is it more options on the
that
table?
And you're really the more options. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But too many options could benefit her for sure. I mean, she still operates in that, far left, in a way, progressive lane, or at least tries to, or pretends to be, some would say.
And let's talk about money here. Block Club Chicago's Mick Dumke had a recent report on the sheer amount of money being spent in this race. $22 million across 9 candidates. Willie Wilson's got the biggest war chest with $6 million. Lori Lightfoot's close behind with $5.1 million. Paul Vallas, $4.6 million. Derrick, how does this compare to past mayoral races? Or is this the usual amount that we see?
Well, more than the amounts, I think you have to look at who is giving to who, and Paul Vallas is benefiting from a surge of money from the moneyed interests, business people, investors, financiers like John Canning, who may not be a familiar name to our our listeners, I should say, but is a big behind the scenes power in Chicago. Craig Duchessois, the son of the racetrack owner, the former owner of the Arlington Parks racetrack. The business community is really piling it on for Vallis.
Yeah.
Lori is getting some of that business money because, business people like to hedge your bets. They like to have, they want to know that they've got an ear open no matter who wins.
A lot of sports teams backing her, too, ownership of sports teams.
Sure.
Money doesn't necessarily equal votes, but it definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You got to have money to run, and Vallis has been seeing more than he ever has for any run. So.
Yeah, he's always, when I interviewed him, I asked him what he had learned from his last election, his last mayoral run, and he said, I learned I didn't have enough money. So he says, I've gotten better at fundraising.
We'll take a pause there. That is former politics reporter Derrick Blakley. We've got Corli Jay with Crain Chicago Business and CW26's Brandon Pope. We are just getting started. Stick around because there's plenty more news to cover. But first, back over to Lisa Labez. If you are an Illinois lawmaker convicted of corruption, you are probably keeping your pension.
Yes, indeed. WBEZ has documented nearly $2 million in state pension payments to a group that includes tax cheats, indicted former House Speaker Michael Madigan and his inner circle awaiting trial. After WBEZ had reported on the payout, some lawmakers now want to pass legislation to stop that. Bruce Willis's family says the actor is diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. The frontotemporal form affects regions in the front and sides of the brain, and his family says about a year ago, Willis, they said he was going to step away from acting after being diagnosed with aphasia. Now, that's a brain disorder leading to problems with speaking, reading, and writing, and symptoms of this form of dementia can include aphasia, also emotional problems and physical difficulties such as trouble walking, and they do tend to worsen over time. Brazil's Carnival is back. Brazil's federal government expects 46 million people to join the festivities that officially begin today and run through February 22nd. So samba songs will ring out till dawn at Rio's sold-out parade grounds. The COVID-19 pandemic last year prompted Rio to delay Carnival by 2 months.
I'm Alzo Slade, filling in for Peter Sagal. Rihanna's Super Bowl show was so fantastic, we're going to do this week's show from platforms hanging 50 feet off the ground. Join us for the news quiz from NPR.
Saturday at 10 and again Sunday morning at 11 on WBEZ.
Join WBEZ on Saturday, February 25th at the Apollo Theater as award-winning author Rebecca Mackay discusses her new book, I Have Some Questions for You. Tickets at wbez.org/events.
Live from NPR News in Washington.
Live from NPR News.
Live from NPR News.
The NPR Newscast brings you the latest news 24/7. Listen every hour on the hour.
Here at 91.5 WBEZ Chicago.
WBEZ is supported by Great Books Summer Camp, coming to Northwestern University. Residential and day programs where middle and high school students explore the great books, arts, philosophy, and big ideas. Registration at greatbookscamp.com.
And WBEZ is supported by Discover Card and Discover.com. Great looking day. Chilly, though. A high of 27, right now 22, and the wind chill feels like 15. We'll see gusts as high as 20 miles per hour, but sunshine today and throughout the weekend. And if you have Monday off, that'll be a nice sunny day, too. So warming up slightly into the 40s for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's 12:28.
And we're back now with more Reset and more of the weekly news recap. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons, and with us now is a panel of journalists breaking down the biggest state and local stories. Let's get back into it.
Starting March 1st, the federal government is ending emergency SNAP food benefits all across the country.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker delivered his annual State of the State address at the state capitol.
CTA and PACE are collaborating on ticketing and passes to make commuting a little easier.
Chicago's first black independently owned dispensary opened its doors.
Make-A-Wish announced Michael Jordan will make a record-setting $10 million donation.
At the table with me today is Derrick Blakley, veteran journalist and former CBS 2 politics reporter, Crain Chicago business reporter Corli Jay, and Brandon Pope, reporter and anchor with CW26. Don't forget that you can also watch the weekly news recap right now on the WBEZ Facebook and YouTube pages. All right, on Wednesday, Governor J.B. Pritzker gave the annual State of the State address. It was combined with the budget address. So we got a 2-for-1 deal there, and over the course of nearly an hour, he had a lot to share. Let's listen.
Today, I ask you to partner with me once again, this time on the long-term investment that has the greatest return for taxpayers with the most positive social and economic impact that I have ever come to you with. It's called Smart Start Illinois, and it will make our state the best place in the nation to raise young children. When it comes to K-12 education, we've come a long way, and we still have a long way to go, which is why I'm proposing we increase our investment in K-12 education by another $506 million. With a $100 million increase in MAP, we can make history. Together with Pell Grants, virtually everyone at or below median income in Illinois can go to community college tuition free.
So the big takeaway seemed to be his proposal to invest in education. So let's start with universal preschool. Pritzker wants to make preschool available to every 3- and 4-year-old in Illinois by 2027. Now, do you think that this goal is within reach?
That's an interesting question. I think the goal is definitely within reach. He would hope so with all the money he's putting into this. His number he put out there, he said $565 million. My math, according to all the proposals, says $700 million toward education overall. $250 million over 4 years to ramp up pre-K education. $100 million for new facilities to accommodate that more pre-K education. $350 for elementary and secondary schools. $100 million toward MAP programs, like all of that together, that's a major investment. By 2027, he's got to make sure he gets through all the approval processes and gets every school. This is statewide, not just Chicago, so he's got to get everybody on the same page, but I think it's feasible within that time period.
The governor made a lot of promises in his speech, from a nearly $1 billion boost in education to a $10 billion pension contribution as well. But Republicans sounded the alarm. They said the state just doesn't have the revenue to support these expensive promises. What do you think, Derrick? Do they have a point?
Well, Illinois has been flush with cash from two sources. First of all, we had the federal COVID funds that have really boosted the state's bottom line, and a stronger than expected economy. I think what the Republicans are saying is, what if the economy takes a downturn and we already know this federal cash is going to disappear? So long term, do we have the revenues to sustain this level of spending? And that's really an open question. The other thing, you mentioned pensions. As a taxpayer, the Democrats can do anything they want in Springfield. They have hegemony. They've got a supermajority. They control every statewide elected office, and of course, they hold the governor's chair.
Yeah.
But they have done really nothing to substantially, and I mean substantially, attack the pension monster that is eating the Illinois budget. 27% of the Illinois budget now is spent on pension payments. Ooh. That is only going to grow. It is not sustainable, and they have not lifted a finger to try to manage the growth. And that's a major reason why property taxes are so high too, is pension costs.
But you mentioned taxpayers. I should note the governor's speech did not include any major tax increases, and with the possibility of a mild recession this year, any increases will not go over well with taxpayers, for sure. So Brandon and Corli, I want to move over to SNAP benefits here, because in other statewide news, emergency benefits are ending soon in 32 states, including here in Illinois. This will affect more than 2 million residents here who have relied on that extra money, especially as we've been seeing record inflation. It feels like just the worst time. The eggs are so damn high for these SNAP benefits to be ending. What do you think, Brandon? I'll come to you first.
Exactly, yeah. You're dealing with, the threat of a possible recession, inflation really high, and now hundreds, $200, $300, that's a big dent in a family's finances. That's a huge dent, especially you already got to pay more for food. There was a great article at a Tribune that was talking to families about how they're going to deal with this. And now it's on food pantries, really. There's going to be a lot more influx of food pantries to step in and fill some of that need. And in talking to a lot of these food pantries myself for stories, they're having struggles themselves in filling their pantries and being able to have enough stuff for these people. So this is a story that's really mounting that we're going to have to pay attention to as these SNAP benefits draw back, because that economic divide in Chicago is already steep. It's set to be steeper after this.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to me to see how people kind of make up for that loss in money and what they do, like if they get any side hustles, whatever. It's really going to be interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Earlier this week, we talked to the CEO of Nourishing Hope Pantry in Lakeview, who said that they're getting ready for a huge spike in demand. I mean, any thoughts there? How will food pantries be relied on to fill in the gap here? the lines I can picture to be around the block.
Exactly. I don't even know what to expect. Like, I really don't.
I think what's going to, obviously it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these shelters are going to need more of us to step up and
a lot more volunteers.
A lot more volunteer work, but there's only so much they can do.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost basic economics. You know, when you got so much demand but not enough supply, it gets overwhelming. So I'm really concerned about this personally. I think that we all have to, as Chicagoans, as a village, think if we have those extra cans sitting around, or even if we're at the store ourselves and we think we can afford it, you know, stop by Aldi, grab some stuff and drop it off real quick.
Yeah.
I think any little bit helps because people are really going to need it at this time. That few $100s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it really helps.
One woman I talked to earlier this week who's a SNAP recipient was talking about how she had gone from getting some 200 and something a month to 600 with this additional boost that they've been getting through the pandemic, and is now going to slide back to below 200
That's tough
once
to budget
the benefits
for.
end at the end of February. So, I mean, how do you, when you had this extra 400 cushion, how do you slide back when the prices have increased since you got the boost?
And not lowering. That's the tough
not
part
lowering,
too.
Right.
Could lawmakers be doing more on this front, you think?
Well, the federal government could step in and just as they raise the benefits, they could either make the raises permanent or perhaps raise them to a lower level. You know, that's the problem that they created in trying to solve one problem, which is the residue of the COVID pandemic. You create another one because when you remove those benefits, then people have to adjust, and they may not have the ability to do so.
Corli, you've actually reported a bit on the soaring grocery prices too, right? Specifically eggs.
The egg prices,
Yeah, tell us more about what I mean.
You got
what
eggs, you got money nowadays.
Who'd you talk to?
Exactly. So a lot of urban farms who have chickens, they've seen a boom in backyard farming. So a lot of people who are complaining about the egg prices have actually turned to raising their own chickens to get their eggs that way. Even though it can seem like it's not sustainable, it depends on if you have the lifestyle for that, because it can run you like just $1,000 for startup costs, which, you know, isn't bad. But if you get like a chicken, you probably get about a dozen eggs a week.
So they buying chickens now.
They're buying chickens, exactly. So they can save.
I mean, I was seeing it on TikTok, but I thought it was jokes at first. But no, people are really doing this.
People are really doing this.
I may have to think about it. I eat eggs every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So this would be something feasible for me. I don't know where I'm gonna keep a chicken in my house.
I'm like, where's the chicken gonna go?
If it's producing eggs worth that much, you can go anywhere it wants.
That's true.
This company called Rent the Chicken as well. They also rent out chickens.
Rent a chicken?
Yes, rent the chicken. Yeah, they rent out chickens. Like even in the Chicagoland area, like during the farming, the spring season, all the way down to the end of summer.
Maybe you can rent a chicken wing. You know?
Oh, how about that? Well, yeah. Can you rent the chicken to like cook the chicken?
No, you get it for the eggs.
Well, call me old McDonald, okay? Because I'm down with that.
The incredible edible egg.
I'm gonna need some links. I need you to send me a link to that rent a chicken.
I think
I'm playing around?
No, for real.
I'm laughing because I know you're not.
I don't have a dog. I don't have a cat, but I will grab a chicken.
But you know what's interesting,
in
Sasha,
this economy,
is that they actually saw the trend in backyard chickens actually go up even before this whole thing with eggs and before COVID. So like when people, they said like 2018 they seen a boom, but then it really went up in 2020 when people were like sitting in their house, they didn't have nothing to do, and they took that on as a hobby because they wanted to do that, but they kind of like.
I have a friend who keeps ducks.
Oh.
And ducks produce eggs.
They do.
And
they also produce great meat. My favorite meat is duck.
Why you trying to cook these animals?
I haven't had breakfast or lunch yet, so that's probably why. I'm hungry.
All right, moving right along. All right, sticking with consumer news, and I'm sticking with you, Corli. The city of Evanston's debating banning cashless businesses. What's the story there?
Oh, man, I was just talking to Derrick about this. So the alderman out there is proposing that all businesses take cash, a cash mandate, and he's saying it's because it protects the unbanked population, which is like a huge people of minorities, people of color who don't have banks and only have cash. Also the houseless population. So he's making sure that all businesses accept cash so that people aren't left out, you know? And some people agree with it. I talked to one business owner who thought it was a great idea because she has kids that come into her business that have cash, and also people give the homeless people funds so they can get a healthy meal, while you have other business owners who don't accept cash. They're only a cashless establishment because it kind of gives them a clientele of a certain caliber, they say. So it's kind of a back and forth on this.
So yeah, two sides of the coin here. What do you think, Brandon, Derrick? Cash or card?
It's hard. I mean, it's a really tough one. On the one hand, it seems common sense that if cash is legal tender, then it ought to be acceptable to buy anything. On the other hand, yeah, it's a really another form of a business regulation. And also businesses that are cashless say, this is also a security measure. Exactly. If we don't take cash, then we don't have cash laying around, and we're less likely to be stuck up or a victim of a stick-up, a robbery. So it's a complicated issue. But I would think, I don't know. There are some cities that have adopted this already. I think New York.
Exactly. You got New York. You have states like New Jersey that also, it's a lot of them that have this mandate. And it also comes after Lightfoot kind of proposed that to the Little Village business owners to not accept cash so they can avoid robberies. But they were like, we can't do that. You like shutting out a whole population that has cash.
The truth of it is we are moving toward a cashless society. Yeah. And maybe the real solution is to erode the barriers that prevent low-income people from having, bank accounts, because that just as like an internet link is an essential part of living in a modern society, being well-informed, being able to function in the society. So is really being banked. I mean, having a bank account, having a checking account. And it seems like there are a lot of barriers to that in terms of income that could be eased in order to permit the low-income population to move into being able to use banks.
Yeah, because there's still plenty of businesses that are cash only here in Chicago.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about that. I don't like that.
You go to Hyde Park. I love going to Falcon
Every so often I'll walk into somewhere and it's
cash
still,
only.
We only take cash. Let's hear what some of our friends on YouTube are saying. Chicago 675 says if a business goes cashless, that's their decision. And looping back to our conversation on emergency SNAP benefits ending, Paige on YouTube says, why are we not making this a voting issue? Food costs is essential to each community member, Paige says there. Good point. Note on the cashless story, officials expect to bring the proposal before two separate committees next week before bringing it back to the Evanston City Council in March. I want to quickly turn to another story before we take a pause, folks, and that's the CTA. Public transit in Chicago, it's about to get a bit easier. There's a new pass sharing program between the CTA and the PACE systems. Starting on Monday, the two services will launch unlimited ride passes that work across both systems. How big of a deal is this, Brandon?
I mean, it just alleviates a headache. If you have to buy two different passes and you're a person that's commuting and using both systems, it becomes a headache. So by joining both together, they're not raising the cost at all. You're actually probably saving money if you just have them all joined together, especially if you're using that unlimited monthly pass. But this also applies as well to their 3-day passes, their 1-day passes. It's $75 for that joint unlimited pass. There's a $5 surcharge that was eliminated on the 7-day passes. So overall, this has got to be really beneficial to commuters. And it's a time where transportation and the conversation on transportation is like really ramping up.
Yeah,
it sure is.
A big part of the race.
RTA is dealing with a lot of issues with ridership, lack of dollars. So they're trying to boost some of that back with these mergers,
But is it enough to lure people back, though, you think? Like, unlimited ride passes cost $5 for a day and $15 for 3 days. Frustrated commuters, are they coming back based on this?
I don't know. It's a lot of issues I heard on the CTA about people smoking and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's enough, but maybe if you lowering it, it could be. But I did have a question on where Metro stands with that. Are they not included, or
they're not included in this?
Not in this,
And that's a big issue.
Yeah,
I mean, because
I'm a Metro rider.
We really need a seamless integration of public transit in Chicago, and Metro has always kind of stood alone because they don't have a single fare that allows you to ride anywhere in the system as CTA and PACE do. So they're more of a distance-based fare system. But there have been talks about trying to link up all three, and so far they've not been successful. Metro, of course, is dealing with its own issues. I believe its ridership is down 40-50%.
Hasn't bounced back much at all
during COVID. And there's also talk about trying to change their schedules, which are totally based on traveling from the suburbs to the Loop and back, whether it's morning or afternoon. But if you want to travel between those times,
it's really difficult for you.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, they definitely should add more schedule. As a Metro rider, I do find that very frustrating when I can't get down somewhere because it's not rush hour. I think that they need to work on that to increase ridership.
Let's take a pause. This panel is not going anywhere. We've got a few more stories that we just have to talk about, like a certain Chicago hero giving what might just be the biggest donation to Make-A-Wish Foundation. But first, back over to Lisa Labez. 5 former Memphis police officers have pleaded not guilty to charges including the murder of Tyree Nichols.
Hey, Sasha. Yeah, so Nichols' mother says none of those 5 former officers in court today would look her in the eye. The former officers pleading not guilty to second-degree murder and other charges. Rovon Wells says the officers will see her at court at every court date until we get justice for my son. The balloon that was shot down off the coast of South Carolina, the spy balloon, is now being analyzed. The final pieces of debris have been collected from the water, and the pieces include key equipment from the payload that might reveal what information this spy balloon was able to monitor and collect. The final pieces are on their way to the FBI lab in Virginia for analysis. And a power outage at a terminal of New York's Kennedy Airport is now in its second day. This outage has stranded passengers and forced flights to be canceled or diverted. Officials say the outage was caused by an electrical panel failure. It's 1246 WBEZ.
WBEZ wants your car. When you're done with it, of course. A quick call and your old ride will be on its way to help fund the news and stories that keep you coming back. For more, visit WBEZ.org/car.
WBEZ is supported by UChicago Harris School of Public Policy, celebrating Black Joy this February. And with events throughout Black History Month. Learn more about its month-long celebrations at harris.uchicago.edu/Black History Month. And by Shattered Globe Theater, presenting Jasmine Sharma's Radial Gradient. The Chicago Tribune calls it an exploration of the Greek recruitment system on young women of color. Through March 11th, sgtheater.org. And support is provided by the Rosemont Theater, presenting Mexican singer-songwriter Carla Morrison, performing songs off her latest album on Friday, March 10th at the Rosemont Theater. Tickets are available now at axs.com. It is 24 degrees, but it's still pretty chilly, sunny skies. This is WBEZ.
This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons, and we are back with more of our weekly news recap, giving you a closer look at the week's top stories across Chicago and Illinois. Before the break, we took a deep dive into the governor's plan to invest in education from pre-K to college, and also a new pass-sharing program between CTA and PACE. But we still have more to get to, and we're still live on YouTube for those who prefer to watch. Our panelists are Brandon Pope, Derrick Blakley, and Corli Jay. Let's jump right back in, Corli. This is a story you reported on. Chicago Bulls legend Michael Jordan celebrating his 60th birthday in a big way. What'd he do?
Oh, he donated $10 million to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is the biggest individual donation to the organization.
Nice.
Yeah, and today is actually his 60th birthday, so happy birthday, MJ.
Happy birthday, MJ.
The second greatest basketball player all time.
You said second?
Oh, it's great to see.
Here with his LeBron slander.
We understand that MJ will always.
You mean LeBron, the all-time leading scorer in the NBA?
You're in Chicago, okay? You can't diss MJ.
Y'all can boo me. It makes me...
never invited back to the recap.
I also learned that MJ is actually the most requested celebrity for Make-A-Wish Foundation.
I can believe it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He's the most requested Make-A-Wish celebrity. He granted his first wish with the foundation back in 1989. So he's been doing this.
Yeah, he's been doing it.
Been doing this.
All those kids are walking around in his shoes.
Want to be like Mike.
Yeah.
I guess so.
All right, let's keep on moving here. This is another story that caught our eye this week. Chicago now has its first independent Black-owned cannabis dispensary. It's called the Grasshopper Club. It's a family business in Logan Square. This family, the Brewers, right? They first applied for one of the state's social equity licenses back in 2019. Finally got one just last summer. Are you surprised it's taken as long as it has, Brandon, for the Brewers and just applicants like them to just break into the industry.
The whole promise of this marijuana legalization through Illinois was the social equity component, and it has not delivered much at all until now. This is definitely great news. Am I surprised it took so long?
Not at all.
Being black in America, no. Honestly, I'm not surprised at all that it took so long.
Yeah.
This is what the government tends to do when it comes to black people. But it's great to see this happen, and hopefully it shows some progress for other independent black owners out there, especially given the fact that they don't have any corporation or major cannabis company backer attached to this. And
that
also
was huge.
The fact that Chuck Brewer, the brother of Matt, he was incarcerated for marijuana possession. So that restorative justice angle is right there. And that's what this really was supposed to be all about. Was
But the governor
people impacted by it.
You have to say the governor and the black politicians who sold this vision of a pot at the end of the rainbow, a pot of a gold pot.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it. Good one, Derrick.
You have to say it was really, up until this point, it's been a false promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so hopefully this will not be the last. Although, when you look at the structure of the marijuana industry, what happens is consolidation. And even a lot of these smaller vendors start out and they make some money, but eventually they sell out to larger entities.
To the man.
Beer
Sell it out to the
companies,
man.
the tobacco
So
companies are eventually going to take control of this industry.
Well, here's another reason why it caught our eye. It was simply because of where the dispensary is.
Yes.
So it's in the old Logan Square Trust and Savings Bank. Folks, take a look at this. I mean, this is not your grandma's dispensary.
Not at all. Looks
My
very
friends on
regal.
YouTube and Facebook, I mean, can you take a look at that? It's a big white stately building with columns, and it dates back to the 1920s. Isn't that wild?
Old bank, right? Didn't that used to be a bank?
Yeah. Logan Square Trust and Savings Bank.
And then you have a couple others that were kind of eyeing that spot as well.
I'm like, this is a dispensary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't look like it from the outside, which that gives it some unique appeal.
Yeah, it does.
Makes you want to check it out.
I'm hoping that they branch out to the south side, with
Yeah.
another dispensary because they said they wanted to expand.
Yeah.
Let's turn to one of my favorite topics. Food. So, we got to talk food heading into the weekend. Chicago Black Restaurant Week kicked off its 8th year last Sunday. Dozens of black-owned businesses will offer specials in the city and suburbs for a total of 2 weeks through February 26th.
Nice.
Do y'all take part in any of these deals?
Oh,
yes.
Come on.
Okay, that was
in this economy.
a consensus.
Right. We just talk about inflation.
Come on now. Of course we do. Am I looking for a deal?
What's your favorite black-owned restaurant in and around Chicago, Corli?
I got
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Peaches.
Peaches.
Ooh, Peaches.
Yes, in Bronzeville. Them waffles. When I first had those waffles, I could not stop talking about those waffles.
They used to have a soul bowl.
What was it
my
about those
God.
waffles,
They
Corli?
were just,
Tell
like,
us.
so buttery, and the way they melt in your mouth, like, oh my God, I would kill for those waffles.
Wow.
Yes.
Not
That good,
really.
huh?
Yes.
She didn't mean that.
I got you on tape. We got you on tape.
Not actually.
You do. Shout out Peaches.
I would go with Virtue. I mean, you can't go wrong with the mac and cheese, the ribs.
Brandon, get out of my brain. I was going to say Virtue.
Yeah, that's what
And I was also going to shout out
You
the
gonna
mac and
say
cheese.
Virtue as well?
I can do
what?
a different one. Chicken Box.
Yeah,
That's
do a
new
different
place.
one.
Chicken
that's
Box.
new, right?
Yeah, from
Yeah.
DJ Mike P. Great chicken, great deals. You can win some free shoes. It's a win-win to me.
Are they good?
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Shout out to
the
Chicken
sauces
Box.
especially. Yeah.
And shout out to Virtue in Hyde Park. What about you, Derrick?
Well, I was going to say Virtue too, but I also like his other restaurant, his Po' Boy restaurant.
Oh, the Po' Boy restaurant.
Oh yeah.
That's really good.
I went
Is
there
that in
when
Hyde Park?
yes,
well? Okay.
it is. I went there when it first opened last summer, sitting on the patio, and literally could not finish my meal because people kept stopping. Like, is it good? They were so excited that it was open and it could finally, be a place that they could jump into. The Trib also shouted out beignet waffles at. How do you say this? Right? Is it Chase's? It's taking part in Chicago Black Restaurant Week as
Where
well.
is it located?
I don't know.
There's a lot of great.
Yeah, I want to shout out
I don't claim
this
to know all,
popcorn spot
folks.
that I enjoy. Your corn is in Ashburn, like on
Oh.
79th in St. Louis. Black owned. They have a variety of popcorn flavors, and I love that spot. So y'all get a chance to check that out.
And I'll shout out Sean Michelle's ice cream because
yes.
man, you
Yeah.
can't go. That's some of the best
Oh,
ice
my
cream.
God.
in
All right,
Chicago.
this just in
Man.
from the control room. That restaurant that I pronounced horribly is in Avondale.
Avondale.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
All right, now we can move forward. Mardi Gras is Tuesday, and in Chicago, it's all about the punchkis.
Punchkis. You did it. You said it right.
Yes, I did it. All right. So have you each had a punchki before? Clearly,
I
haven't.
don't know. I don't think I had one before.
They're pretty good. It's just a donut, basically.
Exactly. So maybe I've had one.
So how do you describe it to someone who hasn't had it?
It's a filled donut. It's a pastry. That you put different fillings in.
It could be jelly, custard.
It could be a custard. It could be, cream cheese filling. It could be whatever you want it to be. Sometimes fruit on top. Sometimes some decoration on top. And usually powdered sugar or something like that. It's delicious.
And you got to get them before Ash Wednesday.
Absolutely. Or
Okay.
They'll be gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's your go-to punchki bakery in the city?
Well, there are a number of ethnic Polish bakeries, of course, that feature them. I live in Evanston, and Benison's Bakery, which is a longtime bakery there, is a good spot for them.
I'm gonna be honest. I go to Jewel. I'm just gonna be real with it.
I love how you were so real though.
I just gotta be real with
Jewel. Oh man. Anybody celebrate Mardi Gras, or is eating punchkis, is that the celebration?
I'm guessing that's a celebration.
Pretty much.
That's a part of
unless
it.
you're in
That's
New
a part of it.
Orleans.
I used to work in South Bend, Indiana, which has a big Polish community. So it was a big deal when I was over there. Fat Tuesday, New Orleans food specials.
Ooh.
I do miss that. The etouffee.
That sound lit.
Oh, it was great. Maybe I'll go find me some.
By the way, you're getting corrections in the control room from some Chicagoans. It's Jewels.
Right. I was
you gotta
thinking
add
that.
the
Jewels.
S.
My bad.
Jewels.
I forgot to pluralize it like we always do.
Very important. All right, so rapid fire, around the room, real quick, just in 1 minute. What other stories are you keeping your eye on in the current week? Brandon.
I have a good
I'm looking to see what the Bears are going to do about Justin Fields in the draft, the number 1 pick. I don't know.
That's good. I'm eyeing this United Center strike. They authorized the strike vote a couple weeks ago, and they just had the negotiations with the contract yesterday. And I got a statement from the United Center. But they have not announced when they will go on strike, but it could happen at any moment. So I'm definitely going to be eyeing that, and I'm going to be reporting on it. It'll be the first one in the United Center's history if they go on strike. So
yeah, that's their concessions are controlled by Levy. Right?
Yeah, Levy. Yep,
organization.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So that's going to be interesting.
Anything on your radar over the coming week, Derrick?
Well,
or are you just all consumed with mayor's race stuff?
Well, I am going to be watching the mayor's race, but another sports story: the domestic abuse allegations against White Sox pitcher Mike Clevenger. There's a major league investigation. Major League Baseball is investigating. The White Sox are not, because they're kind of contractually barred from it, but they're kind of on pins and needles waiting to see what Major League Baseball comes up with, and it's taken forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. I got to tell you folks, though, before you go, I think they're loving us on YouTube. Anne-Marie Thompson says, you guys are hilarious. Chicago 675 says, I love how genuine this convo is. And was that our first Sounds Lit on the panel?
May have been.
I made history.
Thank you to today's panel for helping us break down the stories. Corli Jay with Crain Chicago Business, Derrick Blakley, former politics reporter with CBS 2 Chicago, and Brandon Pope with CW26. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, that's it for Reset. The show is produced by Meha Ahmed, Stephanie Kim, Linnea Dominic, Brenda Ruiz, Micah Yason, Claire Hyman, Michael Liptrot, Andrea Guthman, Andrew Merriweather, and Sarah Stark. Dan Tucker's our executive producer, Ethan Schwab and Haley Bloomquist were our engineers this week. Monday on the show, we're going to talk with the curator of an exhibit that explores movement and migrations of Black folks to the Chicago area through archival and new photographs. Plus, Chicago author Rebecca Mackay talks about her new book. It's called I Have Some Questions for You. And we'll definitely have some questions for her. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great weekend. Stay warm. We'll meet again soon.
It is 12:58. You're listening to 91.5 WBEZ. We've got Science Friday coming up in just a moment, and then Here and Now at 2 o'clock.
Years ago, actor and singer Cheryl Lee Ralph had considered walking away from show business. But the moment